Thank you, Professor Warden.
No problem.
I was too eager to get started. So without further ado, Hope, thank you so much for taking time out tonight to talk to our students. Just so everybody knows, these fireside chats are not super constructed. These are very casual, an opportunity for you to ask questions, to learn. So feel free to get on your webcam. I know it's sometimes weird. Get your webcam on, unmute yourself, raise your hand in the little Zoom thing, put it in the chat. We've got 3 CWCT staff here tonight to monitor chat. If you don't want to ask a question, you can DM it to me and I'll ask it for you. Please, I want you to get the most out of this evening as you possibly can. Hope, thank you for being here. We really appreciate your time, and the floor is yours. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you. All right. So I'll quickly introduce myself. I don't like to take the time, but I'm going to do better this year in introducing myself. So this is what I want you to know about me. So basically, I was in the Army as an HR specialist, and then I was a corporate librarian for over 11 years, which means a lot of research, buying silk carpets and interesting things to keep a corporate library beautiful. And then I have done a lot of federal contracting, mainly at CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. I have been a federal employee off and on over my career. A few times I've worked at the Department of Transportation as administrative officer for the South. So that's 14 states and me. Yay. Then I worked at the Secret Service, then an HR specialist, specialty in classification at the VA, and then back to Secret Service again. And right now I'm at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And what I'm doing there is basically we're building out a new fellowship program. So it's the Public Health Law Fellowship Program. It's new. We just started last year. We just launched our second cohort yesterday. We're all excited. And so basically, I started doing this or helping people with federal jobs in 1992 because my unit came back from Desert Storm and people needed jobs. And so I was told by my sergeant, who apparently can make me do all kinds of things, that I needed to go help these guys with their resumes. And so over the years, I have gone through a lot of conversations and classes and anywhere I could get really good information on the process, how it works, and how basically I can get people in. That's my joy. So I always believe that when I come to things like this, my number one job is to change the way you think about the process. It has it's one of those things where you hear people talk about how awful it is, how terrible it is, they never hear back, and it's all very true. It is complicated. However, when you have someone holding your hand, it's not as complicated. If you're willing to do the work, then usually it gets you the results that you want. And I say that because I don't actually do resumes for people. I teach you the federal hiring process, and I teach you how to do your own resume. And the information that I give you, it not only helps you get in, but it helps you to thrive in the federal government. There's just no way I could breeze in and out. I shouldn't say breeze because now I made it sound too easy. But I do go in and out of it myself, according to what's going on usually in my family. And so I know that it works. I have people who've retired. I have people who are in leadership roles. I'm back at CDC as a federal employee, and it is amazing to see some of the people that I've helped, like in the break room, in the cafeteria, to either get in because they were contractors or people that would just come to the different events I would hold. And when I say events, I mean, it ranged from a conference room to Panera Bread, where we just grab all the tables and those people. And because everyone has their own desire about what they want to do. And the federal government has every job you can imagine. It's the largest employer in the United States. And it's the most stable job market that we have in this country. And so then I think everyone should consider it. And if you have someone who's willing to show you the process, then it's even more advantageous for you because that means that you can get in. Now, is it for everyone? No, it is not. And every agency is not for every person. There's certain agencies I will never work at just because I just don't agree with some of the things that have happened. And that's okay because there's 434 different places to work. So why not try it? Why not understand it? And if you do consulting and you do contracting and you do other things, you still have the opportunity to come into the federal government. And if you don't want to stay, of course, you can always leave and then come back again if you want to, because you understand the process and how it works. So it's just like anything else. If you understand the process, how it works, and how to get yourself through it, it's wonderful. I do go back and forth. I've had high grades, I've had low grades. Um, that's the variety that it offers. So if you get in, you say, "Oh, I'm going to get a 13," and you get a GS 13 out of 15. If you need to go back down to a 12 or 11, you still get to keep your cash. Isn't that nice? Because it's a table, a salary table. So right now, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. If not, I'm just going to go ahead and start my usual conversations because I want to change your mind about the process. Questions? Usually at this point, people are going,
We're not
"What?"
seeing any so far. Oh,
I don't see any either. Usually at this point, people are going, "What is she talking about?" The federal government. So, as an IT professional, one of the reasons why you want to consider the federal government is because every agency and department needs you right now, every one of them. And so that puts you in a position. So then, if you actually take the time to do your resume and put it together with knowledge and understanding, it's what I call a qualifying resume, where you actually qualify. Now, how do you know the qualifications of the job? Most people do not know, and therein lies the problem. So they fill out a lovely resume, but they don't know exactly what to put in there. So they just put in there everything from their position descriptions and things they remember that they did. In the federal government, you get credit for everything that you've done. What that means is every volunteer experience, every job that you've had, every class that you've ever taken in a college or university setting, any class that you've taken, through a learning management system like mandatory trainings, on the job trainings, all of these things count toward who you are as a professional. And that's what the federal resume does. How many pages? As many as you need. There's no limitation on pages in the federal government. I do recommend that you only use the resume builder that's inside of the inside of the USA job system. And that is because that is going to be the proper format. It's going to tell you the content that we need to determine your qualifications. And so if this is something that you're interested in, it's not going to be something that comes overnight, but it's a process. And if you're willing to work through it, then you will see the fruit of your labor. So this is the process. I'm going to go over this quickly, and then we're going to move on to important things like hiring paths and hiring authorities. But I want to give you an idea of the overall view of what does it look like and what to expect.
this
Unfortunately,
might be a good
uh-huh,
place to mention there's a question from
okay,
Allison Brent. It's in chat if you can see it, but if you'd
I
like,
can
I
see
can
it.
read it. Okay. I just figured this would be a perfect intro to the beginning of the process, actually.
Okay, so in my process, and I'm going to say, if you've ever taken any class about the federal government anywhere, OPM, a lot of the agencies will have times where they invite you in to learn more. I will say a lot of things that they won't, and I don't really care. I only do what works. I'm not here because I'm an IT person showing you how the website works, and I'm not here. I, I've done every aspect of HR. There's 12 different areas of HR. I've done all of them at this point, including the military one. My perspective is very different because I have been at every part of this process, the hiring manager, firing people, in the interview, coming up with the questions for people, the whole process. So my view is very different. And so when you ask me about the cover letters, to me, a cover letter is mandatory. And the reason why is because I have a 27-page resume, and that is for a specific audience in this process. They're called classifiers. So basically, they're under HR. They're one of the specialties. Usually classification and compensation run together, which basically means that we're the ones that determine that you're qualified for the job and determine how much you get paid for it because of your background. We only know what's in your resume. We don't assume anything. It's the first rule of classification, assume nothing. So if you have a 27-page resume and it's only written for one audience member, when there's 3, you got to have something for the other 2. And the thing that I recommend for the other 2 people in this process or roles in this process is a cover letter. But not just any cover letter, because I have found that people have their own idea of what should go in a cover letter. And it is wrong. A cover letter is a technical, I know I said it. It is actually a technical document, and each paragraph is supposed to be a specific thing in there. So when it isn't, it's kind of like people have to move around to find the information that they should be able to go to paragraph 2 for. And I know that that's the thing. If people don't say, oh, and there is a way. The reason why I say this is because this is what works. If you follow this pattern, it works. So, oh, I can't put anything in there, sorry. Oh, there's nothing I can do. I can't drop it in there. I guess I can give you one of my zip files with the information in there. So I can at least show you. So the 2 other people in this process is going to be the hiring manager and the people who are going to interview you. Sometimes they're the same and sometimes they're not. So the cover letter is actually written for all those other people. Is written for the hiring manager who does not need to go through 27 pages. They just want to know if you can do the things that they're interested in. You will find the things that they're interested in the vacancy announcement itself. The vacancy announcement comes from the position description, and the position description is a collaboration between the hiring manager and HR, again, classifier, who sits there and they come up with the position description. Every time a position is empty, the position description must be reviewed. So they need to make a decision if we're going to keep it the same way, or we're going to make any changes to it. A good example would be if, let's say that the job, the person was in the job, they came into it, it was a 5/7. So grade 5 with the highest level is the 7. But they did such a great job that after a few years, they actually found a way to make it an 8 or a 9. Just depends. The question is, do we need to go back to the 5 grade level, or do we need to stay where the person left it? The answer is always where the person left the job. And that is because even if you have to go find more money, that's because everyone around them is used to working at a certain level and having that assistance or having that person also working at that level. So when you change that, you can change the dynamics of the team, and that's important to keep up continuity. So this is what I will send you in my zip file, and it's step by step. It tells you 3 to 4 sentences. I mean, it's very detailed. More importantly, this is what it looks like. Paragraph 1, express interest and explain why. So by taking the information from the vacancy announcement and adding it to the cover letter and being very specific about your background, what you're looking for, that helps everyone in the process. But mostly it helps the hiring manager and the people who could potentially interview you.
Hope, if you did want to add that file on your meeting chat window in the bottom left, there's a little icon that says file, and that would let you upload it to everybody in the meeting if you wish.
Okay, because I just tried, but it didn't let me
It
originally.
won't drag and drop. You have to
Ah,
actually click on the little file
what
icon.
kind of,
I
Well,
kind of,
know.
Oh, no worries.
Zoom's still growing up.
what are we doing here, people?
Well, no worries. Either way, we'll send that out afterwards.
That's another point. It might have to be unzipped. It probably would be better if you just shared it with Steve, and Steve could share it out.
Yeah, we'll get it out.
Excellent.
I'm always dragging and dropping.
Well, we don't want to
Love it.
crush your role, you know. Feel free to
No,
keep on it.
you can interrupt as much as you want. I'll still get right back on track. So the reason why you do a cover letter is simply because you're addressing the things from the vacancy announcement, which is the only thing that they're interested in. The people who are going to interview you and the hiring manager, they want to know if you can do that job. So part of that too, when you're looking at the vacancy announcement, there are a lot of people who say, well, I don't have all of that. Most people don't. It's the perfect candidate situation, and most people are not. The key to it is, number one, making sure that whatever you have, whatever experience you have that's written there, they'll have different sections. Altogether, there's 12 important sections of the vacancy announcement. The evaluation, how you will be evaluated, will have a bunch of competencies. Those need to be addressed. If you don't have all, they list 5 and you only have 1, just talk about 1. And when I say talk about it, I mean everything must be addressed in your resume. We're not going out to look at LinkedIn or Facebook. We're not doing any of that. Everything is determined by the resume that you submit. So if you submit a resume that doesn't properly show who you are professionally, that's why you don't hear back. That's what we're looking for. So, and when you're in an interview, just so you know, a lot of times people either get the job or they don't, according to what they say in the interview. And that is primarily because once classification does its work and determines who's qualified for the job, all of the applications that go forward to the hiring manager, they're all equal. At that point, they're all qualified for the job. So what makes you stand out that makes me want to interview you or have you on my team? So if you don't put the extra stuff in there, I call it the razzle dazzle. No one knows those things about you. Something as small as, you know, all of the systems you've ever worked on, and getting down to the details of what those systems are and what they do. So you may not have the federal experience using USA Jobs or USA Staffing, which is the back end of it, but you've used some HR system in the past. And so name that system and put next to it HR system, property management, logistics system, whatever it is. You have to communicate every single thing because no one knows you. Most of the people who are in this process are not military people, so then acronyms are out. I know you say, what? They don't know what you're talking about, and communication is the key, right? We're trying to communicate who we are as professionals on paper. So if you have, the acronym in page 2 and you go all the way to page 25, no one's going to remember on page 25. Go for it, Steve.
Well, no, I was waiting for a good moment because I think that's an interesting point that we have trouble kind of communicating sometimes. But translating your military experience to civilian friendly language, I think, is difficult. And I've seen it done really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also seen it done pretty poorly. So if you don't mind kind of pressing into that topic a little bit, I think that that's a pretty critical one, translating your military experience into civilian friendly language to get yourself a job, and not just get the job, but so you can actually explain it in terms that make sense in the industry. So I love that point. So if you feel like elaborating, that's perfect. But if not, okay.
No, I'm not answering your question.
Well,
Sorry,
okay,
I can't help
bye.
myself sometimes.
It's Tuesday
Okay.
night. We've all worked all day. It's great.
Okay, so this is what you need to know. No one's expecting you to remember everything that you did. In my process, you put in everything you've ever done into the resume. If you did something 10 or 15 years ago, you probably don't remember what that is. So I have tools for you to use. In terms of translating military experience, you don't have to. ONET has already done that for you. What you need to be able to plug in are the MOSs that you were actually trained for, and then the other stuff that they ask you to do on the side. We all have those ancillary duties that it's, you get credit for everything. And so if you were the sexual harassment trainer or you were the fill in the blank person, you get credit for that too. So all you do is you come here, I can put that in there. And I only use this. There's a lot of websites out there that are designed to do this. This is the only one that I use. I've been using it for about 15 years now. It's always up to date. It's always accurate. I've yet to have one person come back to me. I would choose the Army since it's the best one out of all represented there. I know.
I agree, Hope.
It is. And so basically you type in, you could put in, my numbers don't make sense. They've since changed my MOS to something else. The numbers are different. So depending on how you served and what you did, if you were a commissioned officer, if you were a warrant officer, they're explaining to you, these are the things you could have potentially done. So this time I'm going to be, I'll be a commissioned officer, senior HR resource officer. They're saying these are the things you could have possibly done. All that's required is that you take the time to click on these links and say, yes, I did that, or no, I did not do that, and move on. If you did it, you make sure you put it in your resume wherever you did it. So here are some of the tasks that you would have performed. Here's the technology you would have used. Work activities, so duties, responsibilities. You'll even see some competencies in there. So no one's expecting you to remember everything. You're just using this as a checklist and you're pulling out the things that you did. This is through the Department of Labor. The wording and the way it's set up is very similar to the federal government. So then, what's the question? Skills, we keep going, knowledge, education, abilities. Sounds familiar, right? Skills, knowledge, abilities. So the reason why I use this is because we need good content. The federal resume is always about good content. If you can explain to me what you did, then I know that you're not faking it and that you actually did it. The way HR is broken down is usually regionally, and it's even sometimes like at CDC, it's according to the area you work in. So they will assign you to the medical officers, or you're over the laboratory. So you're very familiar with the language, and you always have access to a subject matter expert just in case you're not sure of what the person is communicating. Every resume is read by a human being. There is no ATS, automated tracking system, in the federal government. So when you throw words in there just to get more, I don't know, points, it doesn't work that way. So someone's reading it word by word, because we have to compare that with the Office of Personnel Management requirements for the job. So all of that information is on the OPM website, and its goal is to tell you, the public, what we're looking for. So if you're filling out a federal resume and sending in application after application, and you're like 200 in, you never heard back, it's because you're filling in information, but it's not the information that we call qualifying duties and responsibilities. So we'll get to that too. But here's where you don't have to think about it. You just go in. Achievement, working conditions, support, relationships. So this is just one of them. Remember, if we go back, that was just one of the things that we found under there. So it becomes very important to be patient with yourself. A federal resume does not make itself in a night. There's no way to create a federal resume and then apply for a job like that. Not a good one. The other thing is, let's manage our expectations. When you apply for a job at Google online and you don't hear anything, that's the answer, right? The silence is the answer. They didn't call you for an interview. They didn't automatically give you the job. That is how the federal government is. Somehow people believe because they're citizens, they pay taxes, that when they apply for federal jobs, someone should call them and tell them they didn't get the job and why they did not get the job. That's not part of the process. And it's been carefully removed, mainly because people love to argue. I know I'm qualified for this job. I did this job for 5 years. Right, but you didn't express that clearly in your resume. So we're not saying you're not qualified for it. We're saying this resume is trash. It's always the resume, the number one barrier for everyone to get in the federal government. If you're disabled, you're veteran, military, it doesn't matter. Everyone, just a regular person who's US citizen, they all have the same problem. That's the number one barrier to getting into the federal government is the federal resume. So if you're not willing to take the time to build out your federal resume so that it represents you as a professional, then don't bother. Because you're going to waste your own time. You're going to waste everybody else's time in the process. Because if you're not willing to do that, you're going to turn in a resume that gets you nowhere. But every resume must be reviewed, every single one. So you can have one job announcement and have over 400 people actually apply for that job. Most of them are not qualified. And once everything, everyone's looked at, it comes down to sometimes 17 or 20 people who actually qualified for the job. Now, I'm sure in there are people who could do the job. They just can't write a federal resume. It's a different skill set.
Hope, I don't want you to have to repeat yourself, but I think what you just said is an important thing. I've talked to students before who are, they see a job that kind of fits their skills or sounds interesting to them, and they see there's already 187 apps. Last time I looked at USA Jobs, it shows you how many people applied, or at least it shows the cutoff. Like after 300 apps, this job posting will close. Pretty
both. It does both of those.
Yeah, I think okay. Unsuccessful attempts to become a park ranger straight out of college. Trying to remember back to those days. But for those that I try and consult poorly, I hear a lot that, oh, it has 180 applications. So if you don't mind, I don't want you to repeat yourself, but you just said you have to review not you, but the federal government, USA Jobs, the hiring managers, they have to review every single one. So it doesn't matter how many there are. So if you don't mind,
it does not matter.
I love that. I just wanted to note that.
So people say a lot of things. I submitted my application. It's racism, it's class, whatever people come up with about why they didn't make it through the process. At this point, you're only competing against yourself and the OPM standards. That's it. Nobody has considered you. We don't care what color or whatever religion. We don't care about any of that. We have too many resumes to go through to even be bothered with that. All we do is compare. We use our analytical skills to compare what you've written and the explanation of what you've done to what OPM says these are the qualifying items. And if you don't have them, then you don't make it through. It's all a points game. And if you don't get enough points to move to the next level, like any other game, then that's the end of it for you.
I hope I do want to touch on the veteran point thing, but I think this leads into Allison, your question. It doesn't get narrowed down based on the questionnaire. I think that is different because I believe that you can actually answer the questionnaire and it'll just say you're not qualified. So I think that's kind of different, Allison. From my understanding, Hope you can tell me, but I think you can disqualify yourself by being honest. But I think that's the way that's to try and mitigate, or that's not the right word. What is it? If you had 500 apps, you're trying to narrow it down. I don't know. But any thoughts there?
Well, that's exactly right. So this is my version of what the process is. And mine is very much behind the scenes. And wherever you see red, that's where you can potentially drop off. At this point, it's just you and your resume. That's all. So the first part of everything is choosing the right jobs. Unfortunately, people go out there and just apply for everything. You have to decide and go through a process of looking at all the job series to determine which ones you actually qualify for, because nobody qualifies for all of them. I have a good 5 that I qualify for on a regular basis. That's all. And I should say it this way, I can qualify for more, but I'm not interested in those jobs. I can go back to the library world. In fact, that's where I will get the highest grade level because I managed a lot of money in a lot of libraries and a lot of content and did a lot of research. But I don't ever want to be a librarian in the federal government. That's different from being a corporate librarian at KPMG with a black card. I know how that sounds, but I really don't believe that in the library everything should be with, metal shelving. I like nice wooden shelving. Anyway, that's a little bougie, but I can't help it. I don't want to. They don't have the budget. They don't have the resources. They don't have the people. I don't want to be bothered with being a librarian in the federal government. What I do like to do is I like to be very independent. I don't need anyone or require anyone to look over my shoulder to see what I'm doing. And it usually bothers me if they do. So we all need to get that together, right? But I like to start things from scratch. I've done pilots, I've for systems, for programs. I've done a variety of things, and that's what I like. I don't want to go to work and do the exact same thing every single day. And so this federal government allows you to do that because you can choose which job series you apply for and the grade level that you choose to work at. For me, for many years, I started up here in the federal government and I went down. It was personal reasons. I was at home taking care of my dad. He had dementia. And going back after he passed, I didn't want to do all the stuff I was doing before. So I went down. So in going down, it was different. That's why I tell people when people say to me, I'm just going to get my foot in the door, and so they'll take whatever. That's ridiculous. And you don't want to go into the federal government like that. You will get stuck in that job for a very long time. That is why you have a lot of federal employees who have been a GS-9 for 10 years. That is ridiculous. That means they're, oh, we didn't cover the money. Just so you know, and most people get it right away because it's the same military system that we're used to. It's important that you know how the money works, or you'll be like a number of federal employees who are wondering why they didn't get an increase when it's not their year to get an increase. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. Be in the system and be smart. You got to know what you're doing. So if you don't know the game and how it's played, how can you really play? I don't know. So basically, it's what you know. We all have a base pay, and then it's a locality pay on top of that. And so here's where you will find all that information depending on your location. If you don't see your location, make sure you read the fine print. Then you're just going to use just the general base. So the way this works, and I'll just use the website. So in Metro Atlanta, it tells you, okay, this is effective January 2023. We usually get a raise January 2023. Grade levels, and this is GS. This is a pay band called GS or General Schedule, but there are many of these in the federal government. And the DoD have the most. But if you compare the amount of money for the position, usually you can figure out what grade level it equals in GS. So let's say that I'm a GS 11, and this is 72. This is step one. I'm just coming in. They always offer you step one. No one's looking to give you more money because they're looking for a bargain like any other company or organization. So they will start you at a step one. It's up to you to negotiate. This is the one thing you can negotiate, and you have one time to negotiate. So you should negotiate. So after 1 year, you get the next step, the next step. But after this, it's 2 years in between, and 2 years and 2 years, and then it goes to 3 years. So what that means is you're sitting in a job for 4 years, and you're going this way. These steps denote years of experience and knowledge. Most of us are not going to be step one, which is entry level. If you don't ask, this is what you will get. And even if you ask, this is what you may get, just depending on how they did their funding. But you should at least ask. I don't care if it's a federal job, a corporate job, it does not matter. You must always negotiate for yourself. Now, who actually does not think to negotiate? They're grateful for the job and they start working and never negotiate it. Who is that? Do y'all know? That would be women. Another reason why we lag behind in our salaries is we don't negotiate for ourselves. And so for us, our strongest motivation usually are our children. So negotiate for your children. Negotiation is a part of the hiring process, no matter what the industry is. And so we don't want to be a bargain, and we don't want to be so terrified we didn't ask, because all it is an ask. And the HR people are used to that because that's all they do is take people through the hiring process. So negotiations is acceptable and you should always do it. So if you're going this way, which means you're learning stuff and you're doing interesting things, why can't you just go this way? Now, if you look at this amount of money, $72,000, if you keep going, you gain about maybe, I'll say 3,000. It's not even 3,000 per year, which means why would you look at the difference in that? That's a big difference. We all have bills to pay and people to take care of. So why would you do that? And not only that, you're sitting in the same job the whole time. No challenges, nothing new, just the same job, getting this basically very little pay. Always go for the next grade level. You need to do 1 year time and grade, and you can go to the next level. You should also be at that moment going through a process of understanding what the job requires and filling in your gaps. So let me go through this. Does someone have a question? Let me see. For more information, I know I'm learning
No, I
more
was
about
just
this.
going off the fact that I'm learning a lot more of the basics of this by watching you go deeper into the specifics. So I was just putting that as a general overview page that was close to the one you were on. That's all.
Okay.
And then I think
So
Allison has another great question.
another question. Wait a minute.
Oh, transferring within the federal government.
It's absolutely the same way. Doesn't matter. The only thing is you can't negotiate anymore. Opportunities to negotiate for the same. No, they don't let you. That's why I said you only get it the one time. That's when you enter the federal government, you can negotiate. But that sets the stage for your pay rate the whole time. It's the difference between, step 1 and sometimes a step 4, which means immediately you're making a certain amount of money, which means that forever and ever, you're always going to make more. And even if you make a lateral move, they have the rule of 2, which means they're going to go over 1, 2 places in that table and give you more money. But it's only that one time, sadly. Sometimes people say, well, when I go to a new agency, will they? Usually they will not allow you to negotiate anything. The first thing you should ask for are there any incentives, recruitment incentives available? Most of the time they're there for whatever the main job is for that agency. For example, at the VA, they use it for medical people. They don't use it for HR and the rest of us. They just don't.
Hope, on that point and on that page I shared, I wondered if this sounds true to you, because that's what they're saying, but they're saying it normally takes 18 years to advance from step 1 to step 10 within a single GS grade if an employee remains in that single grade.
It is exactly 18 years because of the 1, 1, 2, 2, 3,
Got it.
3 in
Okay.
between. And sadly, there are federal employees who don't know that, and they're angry and upset, and they're wondering why they did not get an increase, because they did not know that at step 4 they have to wait 2 years, and so on and so forth. They don't even know that. And they're angry and they're wondering, why am I not getting my step increase? They're saying nothing, but underneath they're seething. And it's not that their supervisor doesn't like their performance or anything. It's just this is the way the game is. These are the rules, but they don't know the rules. Everything I'm showing you is not only how you get in, but how you get your promotions and how you thrive inside of the federal government. Yeah, it's sad because they're wondering, why didn't it happen? It didn't happen because it's not going to happen. Sorry. Okay, so you go out there, you find your job series that you know you're qualified for. That's important. And you go in, you fill in the information, you answer the questions, and you submit everything by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It will always be Eastern Standard Time, and that's because it's DC. The only agency that's not headquartered in DC would be CDC, which is in Metro Atlanta. And so everything goes through OPM. So then it's always 11:59. So what I recommend to people at the latest, it should be 11 p.m. The system starts to get overworked and it just starts to break down. And so then you will miss your opportunity. It could be their fault because it's their system. It does not matter. You will get the response you should have started earlier. And they mean that. Everyone knows it's 11:59. They're not going to give you, 15 more minutes than anyone else because that's unfair. The system is set up in such a way that the purpose of it is to get in people who are qualified for the job and no favoritism and no nepotism. In fact, that's the whole reason why classification was created. A long, long time ago, early 1900s, the system was put in place when the government was just forming, primarily because people were bringing in their nephews and their sons to do these jobs in the federal government, and they were not qualified for it. So the government was a mess. So to correct that, this system of classification was put in place. So I know people say, oh, it's awful and it's terrible, just because you don't understand it. Once you understand it, you're like, oh, that makes sense. So the whole goal is equal pay for substantially equal work, which means we're going to pay you for the job you're doing. So we're going to pay you for the job series and at the grade level in which you're working. So if we hire you to be an IT person at the GS9, we're not expecting you to do IT work at a 12. Will it happen? Yes, because we all have people that we work with. And it's not that they're trying to push work on you, it's that our job is usually to support those people. So we end up working at a higher level. And so we give ourselves credit for all of those things. You have a question for me, Steve?
Well, Hope, no, I think you're killing it with the information. I think something I've been asked before is on USA Jobs, there's a lot of filters that
Yes.
kind of show who they're open to that I think can be a little bit
Mhm.
intimidating. Maybe not
Mhm.
intimidating, but confusing. Like,
Mhm.
veterans, but to be qualified as a veteran, you need 180 days of contiguous service. And AmeriCorps,
You need a DD 214.
okay.
Member copy 4. Always
Look at
member copy 4.
Look, I'm discounting myself already. Maybe I can learn. Clearly I do need to. But like AmeriCorps, but it's only AmeriCorps Vista. Is that all AmeriCorps? I don't know. I just think the filters can be a little bit confusing on USA Jobs. As a person who's tried, and also as someone who gets that question from my students a lot. So any thoughts on like the trying to filter? Because if you look through, like you type in North Carolina, where I live, a lot of people here, it's like 3,000 federal jobs, right? Some aren't even actually in North Carolina. They're just domestic job openings. And then they have all these filters, and I'm like, I don't know how to find a job. So any thoughts on, just even finding the job before you kind of like dive into this process? I don't mean to go backwards, but
I do bring that up, but I'll go because you asked, I'll stop and go.
No, you don't need to.
No,
If you're gonna hit
no,
it,
no.
don't worry about it.
I'm gonna hit everything.
I know you are. You're killing it. I just that came up
because you asked. So this is the most important part of everything, because this is how you get in. You either get in through a hiring path or hiring authority. Those two things you need to know. So we're going to go over that. So I'm at the Magical website, and to get a federal job and to be a federal employee, you really only need to know about 2 websites. That's USA Jobs right here and the OPM website, because everything you need to know about being a federal employee is on this website, from the policies, how the insurance and the benefits work. You can go right now and pick out your health plan if you want. Everything is here. So even under the policies, everything begins with OPM. You may get to an agency that have changed something a little bit, but this is going to be your base. And when you start, anything that comes up, go here. So this is how you get in, and this is how you stay in. So when we talk about hiring paths, notice I'm just at usajobs.gov and I'm scrolling down. Exploring the hiring path. So this again is how you get it in. So this is like a prescription. Everyone's information is different. No need to look at anybody else's business and information. What works for you? What do you qualify for? And what do you have the documents to prove that you're qualified for it? US citizen, they don't ask for anything about citizenship until you're actually hired. They're not asking for your birth certificate or passport until you're actually hired in the federal government. So that's one of the last things you have to prove. And believe me, once they have your social security number, they have all your business anyway. I'll do the veterans last. So National Guard and Reserve, these are the Monday through Friday jobs in the units across the country. What you'll find right now is they don't have enough people who are military affiliated to do these jobs. So you will find them now, a lot of them, in the open to the public area. But it also means that you have an advantage because if you have a military background, they're more likely to hire you than someone just off the street. So those jobs are open. But again, you're going to find this in open to the public if it's that kind of job with no military commitment. We're not going to talk about executives. Family of overseas employees, all about where your spouse or your partner is. If they work for the federal government or they're in the military and they are stationed overseas, you may qualify to use that one. Peace Corps and AmeriCorps, if you've done these programs, they drill this into your head. It's like a blank check. You're automatically going to get a job in the federal government if you want it. However, there is a time limit on it. And so if you don't get, to make the decision, okay, I'm going to do this, it only lasts for 1 year after completing. So may extend the period. And when they say may, it just means that it's up to their discretion as to whether or not they allow you to still use it after 3 years. So that's if you go into that program and once you get out, you can use that. We'll do federal employees in a minute. Military spouses. So you can use this at 3 different times, but you usually only need to use it 1 time. As a military spouse, you should never resign your position in the federal government, ever, never, never, never. When you're PCSing, that's when you can use it. You're moving about. The problem is people just say, oh, I'm now, my person is now, my military person is moving, so I need to move with them, so I'm going to resign my job. That's not what this is for. The whole point of this is getting you in so that when you're bouncing around, you have a job, a consistent job. But what it means is that you as an individual have to find the next job for yourself. You have to network and create relationships for people to help you to move to wherever you're going next. That consists of the HR people who work where you currently are and reaching out to HR people where you know you're going to move. Sometimes you know that 6 months ahead of time. There's no reason why you can't figure out how to get a job. Do not resign. If you think you need to resign and someone's trying to force you into resigning, please seek me out on LinkedIn. Do not resign. There's all kinds of solutions. If you need 2 months to take off to go set the house up or whatever stuff you need to do, do not resign from your job. A spouse of an active duty person, we described that. And then, of course, if a service member is killed on active duty. Now, this is the one that requires some pressure, usually from a spouse. And that is to get your service member to go and get their 100% disability rating from the VA. This is just one of the things that is there for the family in terms of benefits at 100%. Do you know you don't have to pay property taxes in most places? Property taxes are out of control right now. Every veteran, I don't care who you are, something's wrong with you. I have just told you. Whether it's mental or physical or a combination thereof, you cannot go through all of those things, even basic training, and come out normal. We are not normal, but that's okay. We are who we are. Our behavior is not normal like other people, which gives us a disadvantage. If you have anxiety, if you're nervous, if you're watching hands and you always have to sit and look at the door and you won't go to things with big crowds, all of those things are mental health issues, any kind of anxiety. My point is, If you think that you came out of the military with no problems, I will recommend to you that's not true. You went into the military with problems. So now you just added more to your duffel bag, and you didn't unpack anything because you haven't seen a therapist or anyone to talk about anything. And you're hiding, and it's oozing out onto other things, but you're trying to hide it. The person, your significant other, knows there's a problem. They're not saying it. And if they are saying it, it's big enough that you should get it taken care of. Everyone has access to mental health care. Whether you want to go to a clinic down the street or you want to go to the VA or a vet center, there's tons of resources out there. All you have to do is reach out. I always have to say that because people say, oh, I'm just fine. No, you're not fine. I can sit with you for about 10 minutes and tell you what's wrong. No, I'm not a doctor. I've just been doing this a long time. So another incentive to make sure that you get your 100%. Do you know your kids want to pay tuition for school? How much money is that? Anyway, as long as you don't remarry, you get this benefit. And again, it's designed to be used one time. What you should know is that First Lady Biden is working toward that not being a thing. Her office is working with a number of organizations to make sure that military spouses get federal jobs. They're pushing and pushing. Today at CDC, they just announced their new program to get military spouses in the door, and SkillBridge. You're going to have SkillBridge. All these things are important because it's opportunities for us as veterans. Things are opening up even more so. So let's talk about being a student. If you're in school, you're a student. That covers high school, college, trade school, or another qualifying educational institution. A trade school is when you're getting a certification of some kind, a license of some kind. And you know it's a qualifying educational institution when federal money is flowing through it. The VA is paying for it, workforce development. Some you're able to get a grant, you're able to get a loan, all of those things. And if not, you just go out to the Department of Education's website. They have a little place you just put in the name of the organization, and they will tell you whether or not they're a qualifying educational institution. The reason why I'm saying it that way is because if you apply under the Pathways program and you're going to a school that's not qualifying, you will not be allowed into the program. That's how that works. The post-secondary student hiring path, this is a new one. Most of the agencies have not adopted it yet, but they're working on it. A time limit appointments of up to 1 year or more than 1 year, enrolled in or pursuing a bachelor's or graduate degree on at least a half-time basis. This is the #1 program to get in and stay into the federal government is through the Pathways program. It is managed by OPM, but it's in most agencies. CDC, sorry to keep mentioning CDC, but historically did not use this program. They're just starting to use this program. They're just starting to push people as of January of this year to use this program. Most agencies are changing and they're trying to find other ways to get people through the door because we have a huge deficit. We don't have enough people working at any agency. We learned that under the Obama administration. It's called modernization, where they went in and assessed everybody everywhere, and they determined that the federal government is not operating at the level it should because they don't have enough people doing the jobs. I mean, I could have told them they didn't need to do an assessment about the VA hospital. I could have told them they don't have enough people, but okay, they have assessments. It's official now. And so right now you'll see this surge of hiring in the federal government because we're past the one administration, the last administration, basically it was, you can't hire anybody until my appointed person shows up. A lot of those jobs went unfilled, which means the agencies could not function. They could not backfill. Someone got a promotion, they moved on, unless it was a priority position, a hard to fill job, they were not filled. So right now you see the surge. Then we went to a long time without a signed budget. We can't work on a month-to-month basis and hire someone for a whole year. The federal government can't do that. They have to have the money to fund you the whole year round, and that be in their historic budget every single year. If not, they can't hire anybody. So what you see now is a surge in hiring everywhere. You will see one job announcement that'll be open the whole year. And then people will say, well, it's open the whole year. I'm not even going to apply. You snooze, you lose. Those are out there so they don't have to keep putting those. They're hiring so many people. They don't want to have to keep posting and keep posting and keep posting. So they all just pull from that one. So, you know, everything that's out there. And then the other theory is, well, I don't want to apply for it because they obviously have someone intended for the job. Let me explain something to you. If you're a federal worker and they want you to do something else, there are 121 ways for them to get you to do it. So if they wanted the people who were already there, they will find a way to, they don't have to be bothered with going through this process. They're doing it because they know the people who work there and they don't want them in the next grade level. They're barely making it at the GS9. So why would you want them to do the GS11 work? Everything you do from the moment you walk into the federal government in your first job, that becomes your reputation and your brand. So if you're known as a person who does not do good work, you will be off in a corner somewhere until you make the change. The change happens here first. Where now, okay, you're enthusiastic, you actually are interested in your job and you're willing to do it and turn things in on time. Military people do extremely well in the federal government because we're disciplined to meet deadlines. Deadlines for most agencies are just suggestions. It's the weirdest thing ever. Someone will give you something to do. This happened to me that was made me just, it blew my mind. Gave me something that would take me like 2 or 3 hours to do and gave me 2 weeks to do it. How boring is that? So I did it the next day and turned it in because I'm not going to hold out for 2 weeks on one assignment. That's ridiculous. So the other people around you probably are not going to push as hard, but we have a different work ethic. We're looking at things from a different perspective. I got to make sure that I do my job and my part to the best of my ability so that my brother, sister to the left or right, they're on point because we all depend on each other. It's kind of not like that in the federal government or in the world. If you work with a bunch of veterans, you can create that environment for yourself, but usually it's not enough of us to even, you may not even know who the veterans are. If you're going into law enforcement, that's a whole nother thing. Where you would find most veterans, of course, is the Department of Veterans Affairs and the DOD, and then all the alphabet soup, FBI, Secret Service. So anyway, that was a sidebar. So if you have graduated with a college degree, the regular of the world, they get 2 years from the date on that degree, and they're considered a recent grad. We get 6 years. We get 6 years for a lot of reasons, mainly because we have other things going on, and we do not get to it. We don't even finish our degrees on time like everyone else. If you're stationed somewhere and you can only do what you can do, take one class at a time, it takes us longer to get our degrees. So this new program here, College Graduate Hiring Authority, is just what it sounds like. And so this is another new one. And so if you qualify for it, this is something that you should have in your federal resume. I have all my qualifications down near the bottom in the additional information section. It is also that same area that I recommend you put in all of the awards that you've gotten and then tell people why you got the award. So it's okay that you got a Purple Heart. Great, fabulous. They don't even know what a Purple Heart is. So you need to have the explanation as to why you got it. So if you don't want to be detailed and tell people what you did, it's okay. Just go out there and get the definition. It's out there in several places. Copy, paste. So people will know what you did. Meritorious behavior doing what? Meritorious service doing what? That's the thing that people need to know, what you did. That's the whole point of this whole thing. The idea is that if you've done it before successfully outside of the federal government, you will do it successfully inside of the federal government. And that is why you have to qualify for the job before you get it. So these are different programs that are out there. Notice this one here, CyberCorps, is they're doing a really good job. A few, maybe 6 months ago, Homeland decided they were going to take in a bunch of resumes from IT people. They basically were skirting the system and getting around HR. After a few lawsuits, sorry, they had to go back to classifiers. And that is because they had individuals deciding who got into programs, and they were not authorized to do that. The people who qualify and qualify people and tell the people, everyone in the federal government, that you're qualified for the job is the classifiers. And we go through a very specific process. So if you have an unfair situation where people are just plucking people and saying, okay, you get the job and you get the job, and they can't explain the criteria they used, that's a problem. They shut that down so fast. It was amazing. I was waiting. I was like, okay, this is day 4 and it's still going. I can't believe it. It took a little bit longer than I thought, but it did happen. It's like, that's not going to work. You can't get past the classifiers no matter what you're doing. So these are some examples. But what I want you to know as a student, where you're going to find the best internships doing what you want to do, excuse me. Sorry, it didn't happen. Is going to be on the agency's website. So the first thing you should do is choose the job series. We're going to go over that quickly. The job series that you qualify for. So when you answer the questions, you are indeed the expert. You're not trying to do some kind of interesting creative writing about being the expert. You really are the expert. That's important for the questions. But also, you want to get the right experience that's going to boost your career and position you where you want to go. So, sorry, I'm moving too fast. So if you are a public health person or anything dealing with biology, lab work, epidemiology, and administrative work, and we can keep going on. So this is the CDC website. This is where they have their fellowship programs listed. You will never see in these fellowship and internship programs on USA Jobs. They will never be there, only the pathways. That is because these operate independently of OPM. And technically, and in a way, they're almost independent of CDC because they actually have different interagency agreements and corporations that they're working with to manage this whole process. And that's important because what you need to know, hint, 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 is that there are individuals who are reading your information. They have some questions you need to answer on the application, and you can use a CV or a civilian resume to apply for these jobs. So again, number one way to get into the federal government and stay, because you can get in here in many ways, but to stay is internships and fellowships. So of course, pathways, but also on the agency's website that you're interested in working in. I will tell you, everybody needs cyber and everyone needs IT. The question is, who's near you? I have a very specific way of helping people find out the agencies near them. So in the world of I want to telework, you need to understand that most of the federal government is not about telework. And everybody won't be able to telework or be remote. When you're in there looking at the vacancy announcement, it'll tell you if it's a remote job and it'll tell you if it's a telework job. You will never know what's really going on until you get to the interview. So there are a lot of people like, I'm just going to apply for remote jobs. So earlier today was like 221 remote jobs that you can use through the filter. It's like 20,000 jobs out there. You just cut yourself off. And the reason why I'm saying this is because there's certain jobs that have been designated by OPM that will never be called remote jobs, but the people are teleworking from home, and they've been doing that for a long time. So telework means you have an agreement in place that you can work from home. There's different kinds of telework agreements, but you won't know what it is until you go through the process and you're interviewing. And either they will tell you or you ask the question at that time. And they can never put it in USA Jobs as a remote job because the designation of the job series itself, you can never call it remote. So then, don't eliminate all the other jobs because you don't know until you get to the interview. You've just narrowed down way too far. So anyway, so the way I figure out, the one place that I have found that will give me federal agencies without a huge problem, without putting up city government and state government and all of that, is going to be the yellow pages, the real yellow pages. There are agencies that you don't even know are out there. Transportation Workers Identification Credentials. That's all they do is credentials. You have the food stamp office. What I'm saying is that the National Registry of Certified Medical Examiners for the DOT, who would think to look for that in USA Jobs? My point is, once you have your list of agencies nearby, now you need to go to their websites and start really searching them. What jobs do they have? What programs do they have for veterans? What programs do they have for people with disabilities? What programs do they have for students? Because they're going to be just like this. They're going to have it all set up. These fellowship programs, depending on what you want to do and how high your education is, or even what you're planning. So right now you're getting a bachelor's degree, but you know you want to do public health. There are programs for bachelor's degree, people pursuing bachelor's degrees, people pursuing master's degrees, or if you have a master's degree. Whatever the agency is, you need to go out there and see what they're doing to see if you want to be a part of it. That is the best way to get in and stay in. So that's students. Any questions about students? What makes you a student is that you have registered and you are taking classes. And even if it's a class that is one day, like a certification. So if you're doing Onward to Opportunity through Syracuse University, and they have you have access to the system and you're working from home, that is still considered, because remember, trade school, when you're learning PMP and HR and getting those certifications, they do count. Individuals' disabilities. So if you are a veteran and you have received a determination from the VA that you're service connected, a disabled veteran, okay, you know that you've acknowledged some things because you fill out the paperwork. But then there's this whole other group of people who are stubborn, who say nothing's wrong, and they do have disabilities. If you can admit to the disability, you don't have to go to the VA to admit it. You can still get a Schedule A letter, which is basically a letter that says you're disabled, but you can still work. This is another path into the federal government. There are a variety of places you can get this information from. One of which is what they call a CIL, a Center for Independent Living. That's for people with disabilities. They have their own programs. That means they can help you with your resume. They can help you find a job where you live. They're already connected into the government, the agencies that are out there, the companies that are out there in your community. They are very important. They're going to be where you're going to find the disability advocates, but also employment programs. So all you do is go to the map, click on it. For us here in Metro Atlanta, it's usually Disability Link. I am a client. I've been a client since 2006. And that is actually how I got my first federal job, is through Schedule A and Disability Link. So these programs work, but not if you don't admit that you're disabled. So in order to participate, you have to have a Schedule A letter. You can't take a letter from the VA and say, give me a Schedule A position. Doesn't work that way. You have to be declared by your doctor. They can figure it out for you, or the CIL, or state voc rehab, state vocational rehabilitation, which we most of the time don't think of. We think of the VA and voc rehab, but we don't tap into other resources. You can give your money, any money you have from your GI Bill, to your dependent and have the state pay for a degree for you. Why would they do that? Their job is to make sure, as a person with disability facing barriers, that there are different ways that you can get past that to make you competitive. And one of those ways is through education. And so then that's the number one way that they take care of you, is they help you pay for a degree. So that's going to be state voc rehab. Here's the link for that. Why are all these things important? because it's different pots and different groups that you can, one has nothing to do with the other. And so then this is a way for you to take something that's negative, a disability. For most people, it's a negative thing. I feel like mine is a negative thing. So then all these resources that are out there, why wouldn't you tap into them to do something for yourself and your family? With state voc rehab, they go way far. You're assigned a counselor, they have more resources, they have job training programs, they have all kinds of things going on. But you won't know until you reach out and find out what's going on in your neighborhood, in your state. So again, choosing the right job series, choosing the right agency. If you are opposed to what that agency does, do not apply for a job there. Don't work there, because then you feel like you're in bed with the enemy and helping the enemy. And you don't want to be that way. It messes with your mind. All right, so do you have a question?
No, you're killing it, Hope.
To me, it's just the same thing. I can go deeper on everything, but I only have so much time.
No, I'm thinking back to 10 years ago when I graduated my undergrad, and I unsuccessfully applied to over 100 federal jobs and didn't have this information. So that's where my mind's going.
Did you use the same resume every time?
I absolutely did. Yep. Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna zip it up.
No, you could say exactly what you think.
Well, you know what it is.
I
Using
know
the same
exactly what it
resume,
is.
get the same results. Yeah.
I could kick myself 10 years ago that said, well, come on, I've got a degree, I got military service, I did extracurriculars. How come I can't get a GS7 job?
Well, you're right where you're supposed to be. There are no mistakes. You're right where you're supposed to be.
No, thank you, Hope. Yeah, no, I do
Yeah,
appreciate
absolutely.
that.
Where you're supposed to be. All this stuff here, the government will always be here. I tell my transitioning veterans all the time, depending on their background, and IT is a big one. I mean, there's so many things you can do. You can do consulting. You can do contracts with Boeing and Lockheed Martin. I mean, you can do all kinds of things. This is yes, you're going to get paid, but there's certain things inherent to the government that sometimes you don't want to put up with.
Sure.
You know,
no,
like other federal employees. Some of them have been around a long time and they behave like that. You know, you can't, I mean, they say it's so hard to get rid of a federal employee because it really is. And so then we're all there together, and you understand that after 3 years, you're protected by the Merit System Protection Board. And it's going to take a lot of documentation of you doing wrong things to get rid of them. So you have someone on the team who doesn't want to do the job. They come to work every day and they don't do their job, which holds the team back, is what it does. So sometimes it's hard to work with people like that.
Well,
or people just don't even.
No, I wasn't trying to interrupt you.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I think what I hear, the common thread is student vets that I work with who are kind of I don't want to get too deep on anybody listening in, but who are yearning for a continuation of their service, if you will. Being a civil servant means a lot to many. So I think that, yeah, it's stable. We're approaching this debt default ceiling issue right now. Biden and McCarthy are doing their talks, and that seems far removed from what we all do on normal life, but be able to still, clock your 8 to 5 and feel like you did a good job for your fellow man or woman, and maybe a little bit of national security dipped in there. I think it's important. So I think what you're doing tonight is important for many reasons, not just the stability of federal work, but also the ability to maybe continue your service. So
yeah, that's important to a lot of us, that we have a purpose. We have that little window, the first 1 to 3 years after we transition, where bad things can happen. That's from suicide, homelessness, like the worst case scenarios, divorce, not seeing your children, like it. And a lot of that stems from not dealing with our mental health issues. So we went from the 22 who killed themselves every day to now we're at the 44. They're expecting by the end of the year, when we get into December and Christmas, that it's going to go up to 46. That's every single day. So we have to look for the signs within one another and reach out to each other if we see a change. There's a guy right now who I can tell he was going through a lot of things because his comments on LinkedIn started to get darker and darker and darker. And I was like, oh no. And so I did find his phone number and have a conversation. I noticed it, right? So then I have to take responsibility. And he's like, who is this calling me? I was like, this is Hope White. I read your post on LinkedIn. Okay. I don't care I don't care how they feel. Like, why are you calling me? I'm calling because I'm worried about you. Because what you're putting out there, I understand the journey has been hard in getting a job. I mean, he was going hard on 2 companies about he went through to the 3rd interview and he never got a call. And I was like, oh God, he's alienating how many employers at one time by just posting that. And so my goal was to convince him to take it down, but also to talk to someone in the network. We have a very strong network out there for things like that. I try not to get into those deep personal things with guys because it becomes inappropriate really quickly. And I'm trying to keep my guy, 26 years of marriage. So I have a list of people. So depending on their background, if they're Navy, if they're Army, if they're Marine, they need to talk. Usually they'll talk to another Marine before they'll talk to just anybody. And so we have that network out there on LinkedIn where we can support one another. On Sundays, we do something called Alfredo's Coffee House. And it's basically a bunch of veterans. It doesn't matter, rain, shine, whatever's going on. I was on vacation on Sunday. It didn't matter. I was still on there, 12 o'clock sharp, because that's how we support each other, hold each other accountable. Our accountability to one another is different from other people's accountability. If you don't have anyone holding you accountable for what you're doing, then what are you doing? And some of that is when we're in the military, we learn together, we do everything together. And then suddenly we're on our own. Because I know if I'm in a class with a bunch of military people, if I didn't get XYZ after the class, I can go to someone and say, hey, I didn't get this. Can you explain it to me? Not so in the college and university setting. That's why we don't do as well in our transition and going right into college, especially if they don't have a program set up for us. That's a big issue. In question. Do I need to answer a question?
Oh no, I
Okay.
linked Alfredo's LinkedIn. Because he was in question.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Yeah, so Alfredo is the voice, and we do that together. It's the 2 of us. We're the only 2 that have to be there every Sunday. And my job is to be librarian. That's what I call it. But I put in all the resources and challenge everybody to be better than what they think they can be. That's my job. I need to write that out. So if you're a veteran, and you've heard about the 5 points, but you didn't know, well, okay, where are they applied? The 5 points are applied to the questions. So those questions in there, we call them self-rating questions. They're called assessment questions that they ask you. In the end, under the GS system, typically all of those questions together, if you get a perfect score, it's going to be a 100. 95 tends to be the cutoff. If you get 95 or more, you go to the next step. If you don't, that's the end of the journey for you. And so it's important that you understand that. If you don't fill your paperwork out right, if you have a DD-214 does not copy 4, they won't count your DD-214. So then it has not been counted the whole time when you've been applying for jobs. They will put it to the side. It must have copy 4 at the bottom right corner. So if you do that correctly, make sure you upload it under the one that says, well, DD-214, do a quality check and look at it, make sure it's not askew. You didn't put it as a blank sheet because you put it in you put it in the machine wrong and it's just a blank sheet. So you get your 5 points at that moment. If You submit your DD-214, your letter from the VA stating that you are 10% or more or 30% or more disabled. You will get the other 5 points for being disabled. So that's this one here. Now, why did I say it that way? I said it that way because we don't fill out our paperwork right, and we wonder why we're not getting the veterans preference or whatever the thing is we were looking to get. It's because your paperwork was not right. So you need the DD-214. It tells you that here on the website. You need the SF-15. The SF-15 has 2 pages. You need to fill out both pages and upload them. And what it will tell you is you need the letter from the VA. So where are you going to get your letter from the VA? So under e-benefits, they have a section just for civilian employment. You need to go in there and generate the letter that just has 10% or more or 30% or more. It should not have how much money you're getting, how long you've been getting it. It shouldn't have your percentage on there. What it should say is 10% or more or 30% or more. That's all. So if you are a disabled veteran, but you've never gone through the process to actually get a rating, you can't have the 5 points. The letter has to come from the VA. One of the reasons why you want to make sure you get it is because it establishes your veterans preference. Veterans preference is needed throughout this process. The main reason is because it allows you to compete against federal employees for competitive jobs. We're the only other group who can do that. But if you don't have all this paperwork right, the thing is you upload it one time and it's there forever. It never expires. My scheduling letter is from 2006. It doesn't even look like what they have going on now. My SF-15, same thing. It's a whole different form, but it does not expire. They're not going to say you need to update this and get the new form. They don't care. So veterans, what it does is this is the act that was put in place. And it's actually, it says of 1998. It's been around a lot longer than 98, but it was revised in 98. And so you have to have the preference and be preference eligible. You will hear that a lot. Am I preference eligible? Are you preference eligible? If you're not sure, if you're disabled, you're a disabled veteran, with that letter from the VA, you are indeed a preference eligible. This explains it, but basically it's just what I said. It allows you to apply for federal jobs on the competitive side. You go back to the top. So veterans recruitment appointment is a 2-year probationary period. So be aware of that. That means you're interviewing for 2 years. That's what a probationary period is. We want to get warm and fuzzy with people. We drop our guard. We talk about our PTSD. We talk about all kinds of things and befriend people, and they use it against you later. They are not your buddies. They're your competition. If you get some good relationships, great, but don't expect that. That's why you got to have your group outside of your job for the support that you need. Because in the end, in the federal government, you can be competing against anyone at any time for a job or other things. So veterans recruitment appointment only goes up to a GS-11. It's a non-competitive hiring authority, and yet we're always competing for those jobs on USA Jobs. So there's a whole process to do non-competitive job hunts. That's a whole nother thing. I'm trying to think of what I have coming up. Anyway, I'll send you some stuff. Okay, 30% or more disabled, that in and of itself is a hiring path. That means if you have that letter from the VA that says you're 30% or more, you can use that as a non-competitive hiring path in the federal government. See right here, it says non-competitive. So this is one of the lesser known hiring paths, and it's lesser known not by HR, but by most people in the federal government, including hiring managers. They just don't know about it. So they're trying to change all that, but it is what it is for right now. This is if you are in the non-paid employment program at the VA. That's through VER, what is it? The Veterans, I know it's Voc Rehab, but they have a specific name of that group. And if you qualify for Voc Rehab, usually you qualify for that program. It can be used for any government agency, state, local, and federal. And basically what they do is they find the job that you want to do in the federal government, and they get someone to basically, that's the one, thank you, Steve. And that's, they walk you through and teach you the job side by side, as long as you need. 9 months, 8 months, 6 months, whatever you need to know, they're there to teach you. At any point, this turns into a hiring path that someone can hire you. So just keep that in mind. The VA is the one who pays you. You get a stipend. So the agency that you're sitting in, getting the instruction from, they're not paying you. This is strictly paid by the VA. But it's one of those ways to get in and learn the federal way to do things. And there is a federal way to do everything. As much as I know about corporate America, and I know about military stuff, yes, the federal government has its own special way of doing things. And so if you can learn that way, then and get federal experience, then you win. So this is Schedule A again. This is pathways. We already covered that. What questions do you have about being a veteran and the veteran hiring paths?
And I guess, Hope, that's a good transition, because I know we're at about an hour and a half, and I want to be respectful of your time and our students here who need to go do their homework. But please come off the mic, ask questions you have for Hope while she's there. And yeah, we just are so thankful for your time tonight. Thank you for taking time out on Tuesday to impart this wisdom on our students. I know we appreciate it. This recording will be available for our students, but yeah, please ask your questions. If you've got them in the chat, please come off your mic, put your webcam on if you feel so inclined. And
they do have programs for retired law enforcement.
I won't talk about it, Hope, because I get that question. I don't have a good answer.
So is this law enforcement like state, local, county?
I should preface with our program's 80% military and first responders. So we do have a lot of we do have a lot of cops we love in our program, and firefighters. So
it's all kinds of programs out there, but you're not going to find them on USA Jobs. You're going to find them at those agencies. Did you want to give more information, Lee Castro? There's tons of programs for retired law enforcement. Investigations. There, it doesn't have the physical requirement or the age requirement of, say, an agent, but you're doing investigative work. So you have to have.
With respect to your time, would you be okay if any of our students reached out to you personally by email to follow up? Would that be okay?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably better.
Let's do that then.
I spend more time on LinkedIn.
Well, in respect for everybody's time, like
yeah.
Stephen said, we're getting over, but I'm sure that a lot of these, like I believe Selena mentioned, teachers as well, there's probably a lot of follow-up in that area that would take more time than we even have to really cover. Would you say that so also, Mr. Olson?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a small fish, but
so I'll share this with you guys. I
please.
Do this class every single month. It's for students. It's free. I no matter what happens, I will always do this class. It's free. I also have, if you serve for 10 plus years, I'm doing a pilot right now for senior service members. We just finished the first one, and then we start the second one in June. And so these things are free, and I go in a lot of more detail about everything. They're my favorites. I love doing those. So
Fantastic.
Feel free to
thank you.
Sorry. Go ahead.
That's very wonderful what you're doing there. Thank you for mentioning this. This is incredible.
No, my goal is to get people into the federal government. And so then people need to understand what it really takes. And
Absolutely.
so that's why I have a whole system with checklists. It gets easier with checklists. Here's another great resource, because you need to be strategic. You need to know that most of the jobs are on the East Coast. So if you're somewhere further over, guess what? So with this is one of my favorite places. Oh, we have changes today. So basically, they break all the jobs down by the families, the groups. So if you click on there, it'll tell you, where the jobs are, the top job series under that family, which agencies have the most of them, so you can be strategic. The reason why I'm pointing this out to you is because it's obvious if you have the VA down the street from you, they have more jobs, which means not only the possibility of getting in increases, but also having that career progression that you need. There's some agencies that there's no career progression. You're going to get there, but they bottlenecks because they don't have an 11 to get to the 12. It gets interesting. So the other thing I will give you is I kept talking about those standards, the classification standards, the real qualifications for the job. You need to have that. Again, use the resume builder inside of the system. Use this handbook of occupational groups and families as white collar and blue collar jobs. And it has in there the qualifications required for the job. There's a lot of people who believe that you have to have a degree to do certain things. Most of the jobs in the federal government do not require a degree. It's just you think they do, or someone has told you, but it's not true. So to make sure you go to the standards. These are the documents that we use as classifiers to determine if you're qualified for the job or not. So how much time do I have? Or is it over?
Very unofficial, Hope.
Oh,
This is
okay.
it's as much time as you'd like. I'm here as long as you need, as long
Okay.
as you're willing to be here.
And quite frankly, given the attendance we currently have with the 20+ participants, I would say that nobody is wanting to go. But so as long as they're here, you're more than welcome to continue.
Oh, good, because I have a clear schedule. I love doing this.
We love you,
Anyway,
Hope. We love you. We love you.
so this is how it works. This is the system and how it works. So think of your resume as a big old fruit salad. And so you have some kiwis and some strawberry, maybe some yogurt put in there. Those are all the soft skills, the years of experience doing different things, the systems you've worked on, the processes you know how to do, and the writings that you've done, those SOPs and manuals you've had to write and presentations, PowerPoint. All of that should be in there. But if you don't have the apples in there, which are the qualifying things that we're looking for, it doesn't matter that you have all the other stuff in there. Here's where we cross over and understand what the job entails and what's required of the job in the federal government. These are the documents. It's just that simple. So I'll go over the IT one for you guys. So these are the families, and depending on your background, you may have jobs in a few of these families. If I were a teacher, hint, hint, I would be looking at 1700. And I would be looking at 1700 because that's the education part of things. But I wouldn't limit myself there because teachers are usually very good writers. So then they can do health communications, they can do communications, they can do a lot of things because what you're doing is you're bringing all your skills to the table and they can be applied to many areas. So you're not stuck in one job family or one job series. That's what makes the federal government different, is that if you're in a corporation and you're in the HR and you say, I want to be an IT person, usually you get no support to go to IT. In the federal government, you don't get support either to go somewhere. But there's enough resources that are free and you have access to transition yourself to a different job series. I know, because I haven't had the same job series yet. So I'm going to click on the IT 200 group. What you will find is that there are 12 specialties under IT, and that's not including cyber. Cyber is its own little world, and you need to know how that works. We'll go over that too. But I want to make sure you understand how the system works itself. So basically, these are the points that you need to make in order to make a grade level. So when you give us content, we can write a justification. That's the next page. We can write a justification to give you a certain amount of points, because we basically go into your resume and copy out and create this Word document that proves that you're qualified, because we have to prove our work. And it has to be signed off on by the team lead, the supervisor, and if it's 12 or higher, depending on the agency, even the chief human capital officer needs to look at it. And they all need to agree that what we chose did get you the points. So we all sign down here. So let's say you turn in a 2 or 3 page resume, you can forget about it. There's too many requirements of federal jobs to meet all those requirements in 1 or 2 or 3 pages. So if you've been using a civilian resume to get a federal job, that's why you did not hear back. If you didn't read the vacancy announcement and address all the things in there that they list, the duties, responsibilities, the competencies, if you didn't address those, that's why you didn't make it past that point, because you didn't address them. They gave you the competencies, oral and written communication, but you never said you wrote anything, and you didn't say you spoke anything. A simple briefing every week, gathering the information to create a PowerPoint presentation and handing it off to someone else. That means you can write, right? If you don't give us examples, we don't know. We can't assume anything because you have a PhD that you even know how to write. Did you give us a writing sample? No. Did you tell us about writing the paper? No. So then we can't give you that. So it's literal. So I want you to know how these factors work. It's always going to be the same 9 factors. The only time it changes is when it says supervisory, in which case it's just 6 factors. Here are the specialties, the 12 that I mentioned. Notice what's not there is cyber. If you've done any of these things, you need to put those things in your resume. Well, you're like, well, I was customer support for 9 months. Give yourself credit for everything that you've been doing. It gives a definition. I skipped the definitions. Let me go back up. You don't have to guess with the federal government or what we're thinking or what we're coming up with. It's all written here. If you're into cyber, here's the links to take you to the cyber information. The blue links are very important in this process, because they're going to say, what else do we need here? What else does this person consider? Right here, if you've ever been a supervisor, you need to click on that and go pull out what it means to be a supervisor in the federal government and put that in your resume wherever you did it. If you were a leader, yes, team lead, whatever it was, take the time to pull those things out and put those in your resume. So now we get into the specialties, and then they break them down for you. Literally, if you're a policy person, you can take this, copy, paste it right into USA Jobs, and the policy positions will come up. It's detailed, providing policy guidance to IT management staff and customers. Have you ever done that? If you've done that, it needs to be in your resume, because that's an apple. And we can easily see that you provided policy guidance to the leadership, all the people you did it for, the leadership, the management team, the associates, whoever. You need prepare IT budgets. If you know how to do these things, that's where you get the points from. So the definitions are here of what each job is. There's no guesswork. They're telling you what the job is. They're telling you what the duties and responsibilities are that are worth the points. So they do it for each one, blah, blah, blah. Let's get down to the good stuff, which are the factors. So the way this works, this document is 207 pages. At the beginning, it breaks down all of these. So then, if you've done those things, according to those definitions up top, you need to add those things to your resume. You can go so far as to, for the first employer there, if you did system analysis and you worked on the internet, you can label it that way throughout your resume consistently, so people will know a variety of things I can do. I would rather hire someone who understands more of these things for a cyber role than someone who does not. So right now, this is here, and it just says knowledge of. You're not even an expert at anything. You just have knowledge of, gather and analyze basic facts and draw conclusions. Don't we do that every day on the internet? So what have you done in terms of projects or supporting someone in your career that you can write that a few times in your resume? A lot. Communicate factual and procedural information clearly, orally and in writing. Very detailed. Because what we're looking for is an illustration, a story about how you use a particular skill to do something, who you did it for, was it successful, all of those things. So I know people like to talk about the STAR method. I'm not a STAR person. And I don't do the STAR method because most people get confused and they're thinking about, they're in an interview or they're communicating something and they're like, the T stands for, you can see them just thinking. It's a distraction. Just be natural. Illustration. So they're giving you all this information. So for 950 points, these are the things you need to have. So as you go down a little bit more, what you see is this is just for people who've done policy. This is just for people who've done enterprise architecture. So everything won't be for you in the end, but take out as much as you can and add it to your resume of all the things you know how to do. So I would rather have a well-rounded IT person than someone who only knows cyber. So what am I saying? It says knowledge of. Having knowledge of something is something as simple as, if they list a system, go out to that company's website, sign up for the demo, and go get knowledge of it enough that you can have a conversation about it. They're not asking you to be an expert. They're just saying knowledge of. The wording of things is very important. So as you go through, you'll see that. And they have the different levels and they have different points in the corner. So back to the conversion. Depending on what you know, that's how many points you will have. And that's the grade level you qualify for. You need to know which grade level you pretty much qualify for, or you will be a bargain. So after this goes through and we look at your resume and we fill out this form, we already know the GS level you should come in at. So if we say, oh, this person's obviously an 11 because the points add up to an 11. However, you decided to apply for a 7. That's your business. Our job is not to tell you, oh, you're really an 11. You do that by trial and error. You do that by applying for jobs. The more jobs you apply for, especially career ladder jobs, a career ladder job is going to say, you know, a 7, a 9, and IT 2210 usually is a career ladder job, unless you're going to an agency where they want you to work for every grade. There are some of them they're just notorious. They want you to work for every grade in a job series that should be an automatic increase, grade level increase this is a track. So be mindful of that. So how do you prove and know the grade levels that you qualify for with your resume? You do that by applying for jobs and getting your notice of results back. So if you never received a notice of results, it usually means, let me show you the table and then you'll be like, oh, where is it? Oh, it's just above here. This range here, these point ranges, you can qualify for an 11 at 2,355 points. You will not be referred at all to the hiring manager. You will never hear anything. That is because you have to be in a highly qualified, best qualified, most qualified category, which is on this side of the equation, in order to get referred. So you want to max out on your points. And the way you max out on your points is to give us content so that we can justify giving you points and prove that you know X, Y, and Z. Why is this important? It's because if you're looking at this job, when you go into the standards for different job series, it's going to tell you all about that job. This job starts at a GS5 and goes all the way to a 15. It's telling you up front. You do not want to choose a job that has the word clerical, assistant, or technician. If it has clerical or assistant, usually it means it goes up to a GS7 or a 9. 9 is pushing it. If it's a technical position, a technician, it usually goes up to an 8. And those are people who are like X-ray techs. The word technician or something is going to be in the job title itself. We have specialists, we have managers. Each one of them has its own weight and responsibilities. So you want to max out on points. How do you max out on points? Is you spend your time in these standards and you go through and you make sure beyond a shadow of a doubt, you've put in everything. Remember, you don't have to remember everything. That's what I said before. You don't have to remember everything. This is here like a menu. Performs work as instructed. Okay. Consults with the supervisor or designated employee. You've done that before, advising people and all of that. You've done that. But you haven't done it if it's not in your resume. But here it is. This is the basic 25 points. So that's why you didn't hear back. You just did not get enough points. So I'm going to scroll through to the highest level, which is 2-5. And what you will see is that maybe it has less bullets, but you will see the level of the work has increased significantly. Is responsible for a significant agency or equivalent level IT program or function. Define objectives, like you are the one defining the objectives for the program. Independently plans, independently. If you do something independently, that's maximum. So what you're saying, what I'm saying is when you were in the military or you were on the job and the supervisor wasn't looking over your shoulder, micromanaging you, and they just said, go do your job, and you did your job independently, perhaps you should put that in your resume, right? Manage the blah, blah, blah program independently, supervise 2 personnel, whatever it is. You need to put it all in there because otherwise we just don't know. We can't give you the points. So this is an awesome document because it gives you all the little details. Your level in which you've been working and what you're willing to do. Are you able to pick up a phone and call someone, a celebrity, a politician, a dignitary, and not fan out? Like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking to fill in the blank. If you've done this before, then you will do it again successfully in the federal government. That speaks to, again, the level and the points you're going to get for this one. This is all this stuff here is important for the higher up you go. To plan, coordinate, or advise. The purpose of the context, you just get them basic information, that's A. But to coordinate and advise, that's going to be B. C is you're calling to influence or persuade someone. Is it your job to get the buy-in from people? Have you been successful at doing that? Why isn't it in your resume? It's a real thing. You're being judged by that. And then D, to present, justify, defend, negotiate. I mean, you're all in. And usually this is the higher level of whatever the organization is. Participate in conferences. You represent the organization in public speaking events. They can rely on you, that you know how to handle yourself in front of the press. All these things are important because the higher up you go in the federal government, the more likely it is that these things will be required of you. So if you already know how to do them, then you are a joy to me because I'm not just hiring for that 11. I'm making sure that my succession plan is covered and you're part of it because I know you can do D. So you may start at 11, but I already know you can do D, which makes me happy because maybe when that 12 opens up, I don't even have to put it out there and go through that long process because I can detail you into it so you can do the job. Any questions about that? Do you know where to find right now the requirements for IT jobs in the federal government? Let me show you where I got that from. Bum, bum, bum. Just so you know how powerful this one website is. classifying general schedule positions. All I did was scroll down to 2200 and clicked on the IT group. Okay, so now it's not working. It did work before. So what that
Well, if
means
they
is
hired more professionals using your advice, they'd have the websites running faster, right?
it's probably me. I'm in a hotel. I'm at a resort, and so the internet is wonky. So it's probably just me.
No, you just didn't pay extra because you're not like a valued member or something, or you don't have that record or card or whatever.
You saying that, but they used to have that here at Wyndham. If
Ah,
you were a VIP, they had the two different internets. One was faster than the other, but now we're all on the same raggedy internet. So here I
all
am.
things considered, you're doing just fine. Once you told me you're on a hotel network, I'm impressed.
It's like everything else is off. Nothing else can be going at the same time. So one of the things I'm hoping that you will do is take your time and scroll down, identify your obvious groups that you belong to, but you will be amazed at the jobs in the federal government. If you take your time and go through, and there's 343 of them, so you can find more than one. Everyone's qualified for more than one or two jobs. Most people are qualified for at least two jobs within the same family. But as you go through fingerprint, security administration, it's all here step by step. Some things are not where you would think they should be. Workforce development should technically be under 200, which is HR, but it's not. It's under social science, psychology, and welfare group. So things may not be what you think they are. So you need to take the time to get to know what jobs are available and read the definitions of those jobs. And so one of the best ways to read the definitions is to use the occupational handbook. And you use it because once you start scrolling down, let me get down to the bottom, you will obviously, it'll be much faster because these are the definitions. So you see the definitions before you click on the link that takes you to the standard or the fly sheet. So we didn't go over a fly sheet, and I'll go over one in a minute so you see what those look like. So in the federal government, we have different kinds of position descriptions. Some of them use the standard OPM format. And then there's others that use a different format, which we call a narration. And so it tells the story and it doesn't have the point system there automatically. It doesn't matter. Take your time, go through it, and make sure that you're adding the information to your resume. So you can read the definition and say, okay, that's what I thought it was. I'll click on here and go and learn more. So using this document is very important. There are going to be some links in here that may not be on that other website. It's just the way it is. Some things haven't been updated properly. I know you can't believe that. Sorry. The federal government didn't update something right. So let me show you what I think everybody should consider the jobs, and that's under the 300 series, regardless of what your job is and the technical background you have. And that is because these are administrative jobs that can go anywhere from a GS9 all the way up to a 15. And these are basic skills that most military people have. See how I said basic? Because the average person on the street doesn't have those skills. So what are they, Hope? Let's go to it. So the first one is 0340, which is the program management series. The next one is 0341, which is the administrative officer series. And this is the one I'll use for the fly sheet. So the fly sheet, again, you have a standard or fly sheet when you click on the blue link. And the fly sheet is going to be shorter and the information is going to be like that. So grade evaluation, it tells you how it's evaluated. It has a definition of what the job is. And that means you need to start reading from the very beginning because they're dropping all the information in there of what this job does so that you can compare and think, oh, did I do that? Put it in my resume. So this is a job that you never do the same thing every day. They have the objectives, blah, blah, blah. step by step, helping management to identify its financial, personnel, and material needs and problems. So administrative officers support usually 2 to 3 of the 9 business support services in the federal government. So they can be HR, they can be finance, they can be budget, they could run a fleet, fleet management, property management, all those things. This is the job that glues everything together and keeps it running. Contracts, here it is here. So this is one job, but you can do all of these things. Counseling management, you become the advisor. If they don't know, they ask you, and then you go do research and find people to explain it to them later. It's a never-ending cycle. This was my first job in the federal government's administrative officer for the South, which I had to know all 9 business support services. The point is, business. So if you take your time and go through this step by step, management analysis, financial management, office, sometimes you're the office manager. If you've done all these things before, they should be in your resume, and consider going for this job, a 0341. And because this job has so many elements to it, they're suggesting other standards that you should go look at, because this person can do finance. That means if you have a finance background and you go and look at the finance information, even though you don't think of yourself that way, but if you're able to manage budgets, then you should go look at the budget. Here it is right here, accounting and budget. If you know HR stuff, you should look at HR. You're like, I'm not going to be an HR person. It doesn't matter. Do you know HR things? Do you know how to do employee relations? That's basically when someone goes to the principal's office at work, the supervisor and the employee are not getting along. They come and sit in your office and you help them negotiate and come up with a solution. You've done that before. So they're giving you all these links and hints along the way to help you be successful in expressing and telling us exactly what you do, what you know how to do. It's important. So I'm going to go back to the notice of results, because this is how you know what your resume will get you as you develop it. The first thing with your resume is just copy paste. Go get all your resumes where you tailored them to be an HR person and a floor cleaning person and a whatever. Bring them all together and copy paste that information into USA Jobs in the resume builder. Don't upload a resume, click on the builder. That format is perfect. You don't have to worry about the template and what should I put where. They literally tell you step by step where to put the information. So here's a job, a 0341 that I applied for in Alaska. I'm never living in Alaska. I had just made some changes to my resume and I wanted to know what it would get me. In this case, the job happened to be in Anchorage. So we reviewed your application and found you eligible for the series and grade combination. You have been referred to the hiring manager for a position. So that's what you're going for. You qualified and you were referred. That means you got quite a bit of points in terms of 0341. That's what you should be looking for. Now, there's 2 ways to find your notice of results. One is to log into the system and go out and find that application and click on it. And then the little folder will come up and it'll take you over to the actual agency itself and you can click on it there. Or you can check your email and look for them there. I like the email version of them. I keep them in a file on my desk. Everyone should do that, because that tells you how close you're getting to your goal. If your goal is to be an HR person and you really believe you should be an 11, then you should be classifying at an 11. And if you're not, you go back to the document, the standard, and add more stuff. Or if you've added everything you could, because people usually just do a cursory glance over these standards, you need to go through with a fine-tooth comb and add those things. If you find you have a gap, where can you and how can you fill your gap? How about LinkedIn Learning? If you don't have a premium account as a veteran, you need one. It's a free account for veterans and spouses. I bet Steve already has that for you guys somewhere. But also, if you don't have it, you can use LinkedIn Learning with your library card. So you can take training out there on HR functions. If you don't know what employee relations or labor relations, dealing with unions, if you don't know what those are and you can't conversate about them, then that's where you go to fill your gaps. Because do you have knowledge of? It's just knowledge of. Then I ask you to be an expert.
You're right,
Let me
Hope.
tell you what an
LinkedIn.
expert.
Oh no,
Oh,
I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say it was LinkedIn Premium is free for veterans for 1 year. I wish it was longer. They use not use certify, verify, the same thing I do for Lowe's discount.
ID me.
ID me, that's it. So if you ID me through LinkedIn, you get 1 year premium for free. It's worth like $100 or something.
Link is in the chat.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I'm on my 11th year of my free.
Wait. Tell me about the hacks.
She's probably just considering the fact that they don't always cancel those accounts. They just limit it to a year when you first apply.
Well,
I would
also
No,
also
no, that's not
say-
it at all.
Hope
Oh,
So
has the hookup. I know.
no,
Oh, okay.
so no, I don't really have the hookup. We don't type this and we don't send it each other. We just tell each other. So basically what you do is you wait a few days, it'll expire and you don't have access to premium anymore. It is terrible. It's awful. Awful feeling.
I don't know who viewed my profile. Come on.
I know. I need all the details. So then you wait 1 or 2 days and then you go back and try it again. Now, it used to be that they have 5 different places where you can verify, but now they only have one. So I'm thinking next year, I probably won't get it again.
But
Like they finally
also,
figured it out.
I just want to put this out there to everybody who is on this call. You have possibly, as an Ivy Tech student, since you have Ivy Tech email addresses, until Ivy Tech stops paying for it, LinkedIn Learning is free with your Ivy Tech EDU email.
Mhm.
Ivy Tech has paid for that. And you might check with your own institution, whatever university you may be affiliated with otherwise. But for those of you who, all of you in CWCT have
Mhm.
ivytech.edu email addresses, it is free with that login. And you can go to my.ivytech.edu to look into that. You just search for LinkedIn Learning. It should be available to you unless something has changed.
Well, that's a great point, Professor Warden, and thanks for bringing that up. I know there's a lot of resources out there. One day I'm gonna have to pay for my own Microsoft Office if I'm no longer a student. But Hope, I do want to start wrapping up the evening.
Mhm.
I think this has been incredible information, but I do want to be respectful of your time, even though you like this, but also Professor Warden and
Yeah.
our students. So if you want to kind of navigate into an anchor, if you will, of the evening, something that you think is, if you could find one statement that you hold on to or that is the most important to you about what it means to be a student, a transitioning vet, someone trying to get a federal job, it really doesn't matter. I mean, if you got an anchor, that one thing that you say to people when you're
Mhm.
closing out a session, now would be a perfect time for that. And we really appreciate your time tonight. Seriously. Thank you.
Okay. So this is the quick one. Don't be lazy. Get the resume done. Is this being recorded? Okay, so I can't say the next part. I'm gonna say it anyway.
Hold on.
I'm gonna say
Hold
it
on.
anyway.
Thank you all so much for your time tonight. And we really appreciate Hope and all of our CWCT students. Thank you so much, and hope you have a great evening.